Imagine there's something in your life, something invisible, something you've never truly noticed, that has been quietly shaping your every decision. A hidden force that doesn't just influence your choices, but determines the patterns you find yourself repeating again and again. Have you ever asked yourself why certain problems keep coming back, no matter how hard you try to fix them? Maybe you've decided to change your career, leave a toxic relationship, or start a healthier lifestyle. You begin with hope, determination, and clarity, but then suddenly you feel pulled back by something you can't quite explain. It's like there's a silent force anchoring you to old habits. What if I told you that this force isn't outside of you but buried deep within you, in a place you've never dared to explore? Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant minds in the field of human psychology, captured this with a single sentence. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. These words aren't just poetic. They carry a truth that most people ignore. Inside each of us, there's a vast unexplored territory that influences everything we do, our actions, our emotions, even our failures. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's the missing piece when we ask, why am I still stuck? So today, I want to take you on a journey that might completely change how you understand yourself, your choices, your relationships, your future. And by the end of it, you might discover something extraordinary. The strength you've been searching for has always been with you. It's hidden in the one place you've been afraid to look. Picture your mind as an iceberg floating in a vast ocean. The small, visible tip, that's your conscious mind. The part of you that makes plans, makes decisions, and interacts with the world. But below the surface lies the real mass of the iceberg, your unconscious mind. It's immense, mysterious, and unseen. It holds memories, beliefs, fears, desires, and impulses you might not even know are there. And here's what's incredible. Even if you're not aware of it, this hidden part of your psyche controls your behavior. Remember the last time you tried to change something important in your life and felt like something inside was stopping you? That fear, that inner voice saying, you're not ready or you're not enough, that wasn't bad luck or lack of discipline. That was your unconscious, acting like an invisible force holding you back. To understand this force, we need to talk about a concept Jung called the shadow. From the time we're children, we're taught what's right and wrong, what's acceptable and what's shameful. We learn quickly which parts of us are welcomed and which ones are rejected. To survive, we create a mask. Jung called it the persona, the version of ourselves we present to the world so we can fit in, be loved, and meet society's expectations. The persona is helpful. It lets us navigate life, but there's a cost. Every time we hide parts of ourselves, our anger, our desires, our fears, even our talents, we push them into the unconscious. They don't disappear. They become part of our shadow. Think of the shadow as a locked chest in the attic of your mind. It holds everything you've been taught to suppress, not just the bad things, rage, jealousy, shame, but also the parts of you that carry power, your ambition, your sensuality, your confidence. And here's the key. The more you try to ignore the shadow, the stronger it becomes. Left unacknowledged, it finds a way to express itself, often in self-sabotage, sudden emotional outbursts, or chronic dissatisfaction. Maybe you've snapped in anger over something trivial. Maybe you've shut down emotionally and didn't know why. These are signs of the shadow trying to get your attention. The paradox is this: the more we run from the shadow, the more power it gains. The more we face it, the more whole we become. Jung believed the goal of life isn't perfection, but integration. Not to become flawless, but to become real. To accept both our light and our darkness. He called this process individuation, the path to becoming your full, authentic self. And yes, it's terrifying, because we think the shadow holds only pain and shame. But what if it also holds the very things you've been looking for all your life? What if your repressed anger is actually the fuel for healthy boundaries? What if your denied ambition is the fire behind your dreams? What if your deep emotional sensitivity, long buried, is the source of your greatest strength? Ask yourself this: what part of me am I most afraid to face? That question might make you uncomfortable, but it's the beginning of real transformation. Because everything you want, freedom, purpose, love, clarity, is hidden inside the very place you've been avoiding. And this is the turning point. What will you discover when you open the door to your shadow? The more you identify with the mask you wear for the world, the further you drift from who you really are. Let me tell you a story, one that might feel familiar. Amanda was in her 30s. To everyone around her, she was the kindest person they knew. Always helpful, always agreeable. She never said no, even when it meant crossing her own boundaries. On the surface, Amanda looked happy, but deep down she felt drained, resentful, and perhaps worst of all, invisible. After a heated confrontation at work, something finally clicked. Amanda realized her kindness wasn't just who she was, it had become a survival mask, a strategy to avoid conflict, rejection, or discomfort. And behind that mask, what was hidden? Her anger. For years, Amanda had been taught that expressing frustration was wrong. So instead of drawing boundaries or speaking up, she buried those feelings, until one day they exploded, uncontrolled. That was the moment her real transformation began. She understood that her anger wasn't her enemy. It was a signal, a sign that something within her needed attention. It was a message from the shadow. Now let me ask you, what part of yourself have you hidden behind the mask you show the world? The shadow has this strange property. The more we try to suppress it, the more it finds ways to leak into our lives. Maybe you've sworn never to become like your parents, only to find yourself repeating the very patterns you grew up with. Maybe you keep falling into the same types of relationships, even though they hurt you. These are classic signs of the shadow at work. It doesn't disappear when ignored. In fact, it grows in the dark, waiting for a moment to break through the surface. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop running and face it, everything changes. The shadow transforms from a destructive force into a powerful ally. Let me tell you about Ricardo. He was a brilliant mechanic, known for solving complex problems with ease. People admired his skill, but whenever someone praised him, "You're amazing," he'd brush it off with a laugh. "I just got lucky." What Ricardo didn't realize was that he was still carrying a belief etched into his subconscious since childhood. He grew up being told, "You'll never be as good as your brother." Those words stuck. They became part of his internal narrative. Outwardly, Ricardo was successful. But inside, there was a constant battle between who he presented to the world and who he feared he really was. When he finally confronted his shadow, he discovered something transformative. The very self-doubt that haunted him was also what drove him to excel. By seeing it clearly, he began to rewrite the story he had been telling himself for decades. So ask yourself this: what story is hiding in your shadow, waiting to be rewritten? Facing the shadow is not easy. It takes courage, vulnerability, and the willingness to look at the parts of yourself you've ignored for years. But this is why it matters. Your shadow isn't just a container of weakness or fear. It also holds your greatest strengths, your deepest passions, your most natural gifts. Think about that. What if the part of you you've tried to bury is the very key to unlocking your full potential? Now that you're beginning to understand what the shadow is and how it influences your life, I want to challenge you. Take the next step. Ask yourself, what part of me am I afraid to face? Write about it. Take out a journal and put your thoughts on paper, even if it feels uncomfortable. In fact, especially if it feels uncomfortable. Because discomfort is a sign that you're getting close to something important. And if this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the truth is, everything you're looking for, freedom, purpose, confidence, isn't somewhere out there. It's inside of you, hidden in the part you've been avoiding. And in the next chapter, we'll go deeper into how to begin integrating the shadow, how to turn this hidden force into your greatest strength. The journey continues, and what comes next might just change everything. The shadow, as we've explored, is a collection of emotions, desires, and traits you've repressed over time. But here's something you may not have realized. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's more like a messenger, carrying vital information about who you are and what you've left behind. Imagine your mind as a stage, brightly lit at the center. On that stage stands the persona, the version of yourself you show the world. But behind the curtain, hidden in the shadows, are countless other characters. They haven't disappeared. They're waiting, each one representing a part of you that was once rejected, silenced, or dismissed. Can you hear what they're trying to say? The shadow communicates in ways that are often strange and indirect, through bizarre dreams, disproportionate reactions, or lingering guilt, sudden bursts of anger or unexplained sadness. These are coded messages from the unconscious, subtle attempts to get your attention. Think about it. Have you ever had a dream where you were running from something, but you didn't know what, or snapped in anger over something minor? These aren't coincidences. These are signs. The shadow wants to be seen. Instead of running, what if you chose to listen? Let's look at a real-life example. Thiago was a gifted young man, full of potential, ready to launch his own business. He had a great idea, a solid plan, and support from the people around him. But every time he got close to taking the first step, he froze. At first, he blamed procrastination, but a deep conversation with a mentor revealed something more. Beneath the surface, in his unconscious, was a powerful fear of failure. This fear didn't come from nowhere. As a child, Thiago had been taught that mistakes were unacceptable and failure was shameful. Over the years, this belief became a subconscious block, keeping him stuck, no matter how much he wanted to move forward. Now think about your own life. How many times have you backed away from something meaningful because a quiet inner voice told you you weren't good enough? Can you trace that voice back to where it started? Facing your shadow is not easy, but it is freeing, and it starts with acceptance. Recognize that the parts of you you're most afraid of aren't monsters. They're misunderstood allies. A powerful way to begin this process is to pay attention to your strongest emotions. When you feel frustrated, angry, or anxious, pause. Ask yourself, why is this coming up right now? What is this emotion trying to tell me? Be honest. You might find that your anger is a cry for boundaries, that your anxiety is tied to an old fear you never processed. Here's the truth. Every difficult emotion is a doorway. Will you have the courage to open it? What if I told you that facing your shadow doesn't just free you from destructive patterns, but unlocks talents and passions you never knew you had? Remember Amanda, who transformed her repressed anger into the power to set healthy boundaries. Or Ricardo, who turned self-doubt into fuel for professional excellence. These aren't exceptions. They're examples of what happens when we embrace every part of who we are. So now, look within. What strengths have you buried because someone once told you they were too much or not enough? What passions have you quieted because they didn't fit the image others expected of you? When you begin to integrate your shadow, something incredible happens. The parts of you that once felt like enemies begin working together. You start to feel more whole, more aligned, more real. But integration doesn't mean eliminating the shadow. It means relating to it, learning what it's trying to teach you, recognizing its wisdom. Jung called this process individuation, becoming who you truly are by accepting both the light and the darkness within. It's not about being perfect, it's about being whole. And now you have a choice. One option is to continue ignoring your shadow, letting it steer your life from the dark. The other is to face it, even if it means sitting with discomfort and fear. But remember, your shadow is not the end of the path. It's the beginning of something far greater. So I invite you to do something right now. Close your eyes. Ask yourself, what's hiding inside me, waiting to be discovered? If you've made it this far, something in you is ready. Ready to grow, ready to change. Don't ignore that call. This is your invitation. Step into the darkness so you can reclaim the light.